Welcome back to Sunday Nation. Every time we talk about poverty and inequality, how do we eradicate? How do we address the vexing question of inequality that haunts us in this age? One professor has some ideas that he's willing to share with us. Dr. Massood Omrani is a professor at the MBA program at Lawrence Tech University, and he's here to talk to us. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Bankole, and I want to thank you for all you do to address this very important issue.
Thank you. And certainly, I'm curious, you have very interesting ideas, and you and I have talked about these things, and I certainly want to bring it to the attention of our viewers and listeners who are watching this show. You know, there are those who are perhaps telling you, Dr. Omrani, poverty is not going to go away. Why do you even want to talk about it?
Well, I am sorry to hear that when the people say it, because that's not the way it should be. Before we delve into the subject of poverty, let me define what poverty is, especially in a country like the US, which is a rich country. The poverty defines for the people who can't afford to eat enough, or don't have a dwelling, or do not have running water or electricity, or they have to choose between medication and food, especially the older generations. Every aspect of this is a poverty, and it's a shame for our nation to be so rich and so powerful, and still there are, I believe, 11.6% of the US population, which is about 38 million, live in poverty. That's a huge number. In Detroit, in Michigan, that number is 13 point some percent. It's over 13%. We are higher than average. That's a shame for our rich state, which with all these companies, that we have about 1.3 million, because we have 10 million people in Michigan live in poverty. So when I look at poverty, I like to look at it from the morality point of view and the business aspects.
Okay.
Hopefully the people have enough morality based on religions, their value system, that they do care when some people go to bed hungry, when the people cannot afford to pay for medications and they have to choose between food. From the society point of view, poverty is a cause of lawbreaking and crimes. I can't blame the people who steal money to feed their kids. Can you blame a woman that goes to prostitution to feed the babies, hungry babies? We cannot do, I mean, you shouldn't blame those people, and it's a fault of the society. But from the business angle, it's very important to know that we are a capitalist country, and consumerism is the basis of capitalism. How could you allow like a big percentage of the society cannot consume? They don't have enough money to spend. All they can do is just to feed themselves and take care of their necessities. That's a disease. It's a business and economic disease, is a societal disease, and needs to be addressed.
I'm hearing you make the case, but there are folks who say, wait a minute, hold on. I mean, you know, there's some who say, well, that's not our responsibility. Our job is to run a company and make a lot of profit. You know, it doesn't matter to us. That's more or less the government's job. I mean, and that's how they will respond. What would you say to those captains of industry who may try to separate what you're saying from them being concerned about just making profit and the bottom line for their companies?
To me, I'm surprised if I hear a good business leader say that, because business leaders divest their businesses, go to different countries to find more consumers, more customers. How could they ignore the customers in the US that they can't afford to buy their own products? Let me remind you of a history that Henry Ford raised or increased the wages of his employees so they can buy his own products, the cars. So I think the business leader should be the first one to speak up against poverty, because they're losing a big base of customers over here.
And I want to talk about this, because I think what you're saying leads me to this question, and that is, there's this rising discussion, not a phenomenon, but a rising conversation around the notion of ethical capitalism, that we need to have capitalists who have ethics, who have a conscience, who are concerned about poverty. Is that possible?
I believe if the people do not care about the ethical aspects of business, it becomes a law at the end. You can see after Enron and many other countries who broke the law, cheated the people, it became a law. So I'm hoping that the business leaders have that conscience and the morality for the sake of their own businesses. Forget about the morality for a second. I'm talking about the business case that morality is a disease in the economic system of the U.S. and needs to be addressed. And there are ways to address that. I mean, government has a role. As you mentioned, some people want to dump it on the government. Yeah, government has a role. For example, increasing the minimum wage allows some people get out of the poverty. I don't know
but
if...
that's something that a lot of people, there are many big business who frown upon increasing the minimum wage. They don't want to do that.
I understand, because they look at the short term and they look at very, in a microscope, on their own businesses, that they don't want to pay extra money to the workers. But if you look at the big economy, it is healthy for the economy of the U.S. to have the minimum wage above certain amount. That 84% of the welfare recipient in this country have one person having a full-time job. And we are subsidizing the payroll of those companies because they pay $8 an hour. So you work 2,000 hours a year, which is full-time, and you make $16,000 a year, which is below the poverty line, and then the government has to subsidize that. So we're really subsidizing the payroll of the major companies here, not the poor people who work full-time and they can't make enough to make the ends meet.
So I want to talk about the role of government and what you think, what would you say to President Joe Biden? What would you say to the federal government? What would you say to the state, to those in elected office? How should they approach this topic? Because I believe that a lot of people, a lot of elected officials have no educated understanding of the nexus between poverty and have no educated understanding of poverty in itself, and cannot even see through the lens through which you're really laying this out.
Well, I know the government's jurisdiction is limited. Within the U.S., government cannot own anything. Let me give you an example before we answer that question. If you want to buy a gallon of milk, you drive 1 mile north, east, south. There are 4 major grocery stores. You can buy a gallon of milk, and they're on sale. Go to Detroit. The poor people who are living in poverty, they have to go to the gas station to buy milk. There are not too many grocery stores in Detroit. Government cannot open a grocery store, and they buy that milk for $5, $6. It's more expensive than I buy it in Kroger or any other store. So what government can do, put incentives on the table for a lot of these companies go to Detroit and provide what they provide in suburbs. They can have transportation system. A lot of people in poverty, they cannot get to where the jobs are. The jobs are far away from them. I mean, as you know, transportation system in Detroit is broken. They take 4 hours, 5 hours to get to the job. They can't go to the job. Can government do that? Can Michigan government provide some busing system, something that can take people to where the jobs are? These are the things that government can do. Put incentives, definitely, you know, transportation system, minimum wage. All of these things are in the hands of government. What companies can do, I can give you an example. Most companies write a check to these charity organizations and they wash their hands and they think they've done a good job. We appreciate that. But you know that poverty, the threshold of poverty income is $36,000 in the US. If somebody makes $40,000, you're barely above poverty line per year. That's the income. So why not, instead of giving $1 million to a charity, hire 25 people, which every person feeds 4 or 5 people in their families, provide a bus system like Ford or GM or Chrysler or Stellantis, I'm sorry, can do that. They can bring these 25 people with a cost of $1 million a year to their companies, wash the floor, clean up something. They give them dignity and honor, and they make $40,000 a year, and every person can take care of 4 or 5 people in their families. That's by itself, 100 people are out of poverty for 1 year with $1 million that the company spent. That's the meaningful way to help the poverty. If 10 companies do that, you're talking about thousands of people out of poverty. They need the bus to come to work and go back home. I mean, a lot of companies have this kind of transportation system tailored for them. Why not? I mean, this is one solution that they can do.
What's the role of the university here?
Our university tries to get involved with Pulse Institute, as you're familiar with it. You're the founder of that, definitely. But we are different. We are looking for fundraising to help the students in underprivileged areas to come to school for free, those with high potentials. We try to work with the K-12 schools, try to educate these students and help them. All the professors volunteer their time to go there and help these students. So there are things that the university can do within their means.
Yeah. Looking into the future here, given the direction, the direction of our nation, are you optimistic when it comes to the subject of poverty?
To certain degrees I am, because I can see people do care more and more now. Not everybody cares the same amount, but I can see they do care. A lot of people, when they see a poor person, they volunteer to help. But they don't step back and look at the big picture that why do we have poverty? You know that our economic system is basically helping toward the privileged, not the underprivileged, unfortunately. That needs to be corrected. I'm hoping more politicians get involved through activities that you guys are doing. So, yeah, I am optimistic to some degrees. Yes, sir.
Yeah, because I asked the question because, you know, people will say, well, listen, you know, politicians will say whatever they want to say and they'll just move on. And I just feel like it seems as if there's a need to continue to drum this issue more and more.
By all means.
But what I want to ask you, though, within the academy, though, is there even a realization that this is an issue that needs to be studied?
Definitely it is. As I mentioned, it is based on business cases. You have to study that. Based on the morality and ethics, you have to study that. I want to say something else. In the society that there is poverty, the morality of that society will diminish. Either you are in poverty land or you are in a position of strength and don't care or don't want to help the other people. That means you're losing that value system that keeps the society together. A society with no value system is doomed to vanish. So it is very important. If the people think a little bit in a macro level, they will notice that poverty affecting everyone, even the rich people, even the people who are not affected by poverty. They're being affected at the end by being close to, in the proximity of an area which is the poverty-stricken.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, Dr. Massood Omrani, who's a professor at the MBA program at Lawrence Technological University here in Southfield, talking to us. We'll be right back.